Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where people truly believe they can do what they want, when they want, because they're special. And in today's episode, we're dealing with psycho parents, guys, who overstep boundaries. We're talking crossing way over the line. Like cops are being called for the most ridiculous reasons. You'll be shaking your head so hard in this one. I hope you enjoy the lineup. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this didn't directly happen to me. It was my mother talking to my sister, and then my sister told me about it afterwards. Here's a little backstory. When I was a kid, I had a pretty bad stutter. Even nowadays, some big words can trip me up if I'm very excited or anxious. But my speech is pretty good now. Good enough to earn a bachelor's in communications, I suppose. Anyway, I also have a wonderful stepmother whom I love, and she always goes out of her way to help me with everything. When I entered 6th grade, stepmom and dad organized to enroll me in a speech class in my school that would really help me get rid of my stutter. And after about a year, my speech was much improved. My own mother, however, is definitely the jealous type, and to say the least, she didn't take kindly to my stepmom helping me where she wouldn't. That said, recently, my niece has been developing a stutter at a young age, and my sister talks to my mom about it, and here's that conversation. She basically says to mom, "So I've noticed that Jody's developed a bad stutter. It's getting worse over the past few weeks." That's when mom replies, "You know what you do? You take a clean dish rag, wet it, and you pop it across her mouth like a slingshot." That's what I did to OP. Sister tells mom, OP had a speech therapist at his elementary school. Mom says, no, I popped him in the mouth with a wet towel. And after that, he spoke clearly, so try it. Of course, sister tells mom, I'm not popping her mom. OP had a speech therapist in school to work with him weekly, and that's how it went away. She then says, no, I'm a mother. I know things. I'm telling you what works. Sister tells her, I'm a mother too, and that sounds like something I don't want to do. And that's when mom replies with, I'm your mother and I raised you. You don't think I know what works? OP's school did not cure him. I did, so try it. Sister rolls her eyes and says, okay, mom. Now obviously, my sister didn't try that, and obviously, our mom's lying about hitting me. I can assure you, she never punched me in the mouth. At least from what I can remember. But my stutter wasn't addressed until 6th grade, when I'd be around 11 or 12 years old, so I would definitely remember if something like that happened. My sister also texted our stepmom after too, and immediately, our stepmom reaches out to an actual speech therapist, who then contacted my sister with advice and to set up an appointment. I think it's obvious who we turn to whenever we need help or advice. Yeah, I am just baffled at mom's response. You know what cures stuttering? Just slapping your baby across the mouth with a wet cloth. I did it to your brother and it works. Like, that is so messed up, and honestly, that actually might cause the child to never speak again in fear of being smacked. But yeah, I think OP's mom might have some memory issues, or she's gone completely bonkers, because even hearing that suggestion is so wild to me. I don't know about you guys, but if I were in OP's sister's shoes, I would definitely keep mom away from my kid after that suggestion. So for context, this actually happened a couple of years ago. I'm now 22 years old, female, and a bit about me is I have a phobia of wasps. Now, it isn't just an ick or a small fear. This is a full-blown, panic-inducing, crippling phobia. And I've had it for as long as I can remember. Anytime I see a wasp, no matter how far away from me it is, I will do absolutely anything I can to get as far away from it as possible. If one flies near me, I'll start to shake, cry, hyperventilate, and if it gets any closer, I'll start screaming and flailing, much like a child. It's incredibly embarrassing and humiliating, especially out in public. I've tried my best to control it, but nothing so far has helped. It also might be worth mentioning that I'm autistic, so I struggle deeply with emotional regulation due to my disability. That said, my phobia has always been a huge nuisance, especially to the people around me, and trust me, my family made sure I knew about it. As a young child, I was constantly reminded how I ruined family outings, how my family can't take me outside, and I would be spanked for having panic attacks. On top of that, my dad and his brother loved to torment me about it when I was little. They would jab me in the head, and they would make buzzing noises to startle me. And then they would tell me there were nests nearby to make me scream and cry. And then, when I got to the point of crying, they would make fun of me for being such a crybaby. So needless to say, my wasp phobia isn't necessarily all about wasps. There's some PTSD attached to it as well. Enough with the sad backstory though, and on to the main event. A couple of years ago, my mom and I had just returned from the grocery store. We pull into the driveway, and beside the driveway in front of my parents' house stands a big oak tree. There were a whole bunch of wasps swooping and buzzing around the car because of the tree. My mom had asked me to get out to help her with the groceries, and I asked her to go ahead and start, and I would join her once I calmed my nerves down about the wasps. My mom chose to stay in the car with me to help calm me down. Now, I can't stress this enough. My mom was not trapped in the car with me. She was only trying to help, and she could have removed herself from the situation at any time. My dad was out in the front yard, and he noticed that I wasn't getting out. That's when he came up to the door and he tried to open it. Of course, I just screamed and held it shut, considering there were a bunch of wasps directly by the door. My mom told him to go away. She could handle it. She was trying to calm me down, and all he was doing was making me more upset. Now my panic attack was beginning to turn into an autism meltdown. I felt trapped, like I couldn't escape. My dad came back after a few minutes, and he tried once again to open the door. That's when I freak out again, and I start crying, begging him to leave me alone. He obliges and goes away. A few moments later, I finally begin to calm down, and I go to get out of the car so I can make a beeline for the garage, and the pun's absolutely intended. Now keep in mind, there's still a very large sum of wasps zipping back and forth around the car. Right as I'm about to open the door, my dad emerges with his phone up to his ear. He comes up to the door and he pounds on the window, which startles me into not wanting to open it again. He then forces the door open, and that's when he informs me that he's calling the police to have me forcibly removed from his car. This of course terrifies me, enough to immediately get out of the car. I burst into tears, begging him to hang up the phone and to not get the cops involved. As I jump out of the car and run into the house, the wasps obviously forgotten. I was beyond embarrassed and humiliated. I felt like a child. My mom was livid, and I could hear her yelling at my dad as I ran in. I locked myself in the bathroom, feeling like I was going to vomit. My dad pounds on the door, and that's when he tells me it's my fault he called the police, and that I deserved it, and that I was gonna be the one explaining to police why I was too wimpy to get out of the car he owned. The police actually arrived about half an hour later, and I had to embarrassingly explain the situation to them. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, and the only good part about the whole ordeal is they weren't impressed with my dad at all. In fact, one of the officers actually scolded him. I didn't respond to my dad at all for 2 days. After a couple of days of the silent treatment, he told me that if I wanted to treat him so badly for being a loving and caring father, that I wasn't allowed to have privileges in the house anymore, and that he was taking my car away. He was essentially trying to lock me down like a child. Given the fact that this was a tactic he'd been using my whole life, I gave in to him, and things went back to normal, if you can even call it that. My dad even bragged that because of him, I was less wimpy after that. Whatever that means, because I'm still scared crapless of wasps. I've since moved out, and I'm far away from that situation. I still can't believe anyone in their right mind would call the police on a person who was having a moment of distress, especially considering that I wasn't hurting myself or anyone else. My mom wasn't trapped in there with me either, like my dad tried to claim to the police. She had free will to leave the car at any time. So yeah, long story short, my entitled piece of crap dad was so desperate for a power trip that he came down on me with an iron fist about a situation that he wasn't involved in or asked to become involved in. His house, his rules, as he would always say. Yeah, I'm just glad to know that OP's out of that household now and hopefully living her best life now that she's away from Psycho Dad. Like, I just feel so bad that OP had to be put through all that. Like, what kind of parent does that? Maybe the household that Dad's from is lacking a few brain cells because Uncle is definitely not any better for helping Dad torment OP. I think we can agree that both are idiots. And while we're on the topic of ridiculous cop calls, listen to this next post, guys. So this happened a month ago. My sister's friend Jocelyn, not her real name, was over doing some homework at the time, and her dad was supposed to pick her up. Her parents are divorced, and her mom has no custody over her at all. As from what I've heard, the woman's crazy. You'll soon find out why. All of us were sitting together talking when Jocelyn gets a phone call. She rolls her eyes as it's her mom, and she puts it on speakerphone so we can all hear the conversation, and this is how it goes. Her mom says, "Hey, where are you?" Jocelyn says, "I'm just at a friend's house doing some homework. We have a project that's due next week." Her mom says, yeah, I'm sure that can wait. You remember that place we used to go to when you were like 7 years old? That glow-in-the-dark bowling? Well, I was wondering if you wanted to go bowling with me and some friends tonight." Jocelyn says, "Not really. I have plans with Dad later tonight, and I need to get this project done for school because..." Her mom then stops her there and says, "Come on, we never hang out. You're always complaining that we never hang out, and when I try to, you won't let me. I wonder why we don't hang out. You're always hanging out with your dad." At this point, she's fed up with her crap. And Jocelyn says, "Well, it's not my fault that your schedule doesn't line up with mine, Mom. It's a school night. I have school tomorrow." She then says, "Listen, if you don't come, I will call the cops saying you were kidnapped, and I will drive over there to take you bowling, whether you like it or not." Jocelyn says, "Well, you don't have custody over me, so you don't get the choice, Mom." Jocelyn's mom then proceeds to hang up and apparently calls Jocelyn's dad, asking where she was. This set off alarms, and he apparently hung up and drove to our house, knowing that she was gonna do something stupid. All while this was happening, everyone at my house was scrambling around, trying to figure out what to do if she shows up. Jocelyn's mom then proceeds to call my mom. My mom picks up and she says, "Hey, get my daughter ready to leave. I'll be there soon." My mom of course tells her, "No, that's not gonna happen. I know for a fact that you just threatened your daughter, and if you set foot on this property, I will call the police. You're not welcome here." She then says, "Are you threatening me?" and then proceeds to hang up. About 30 minutes later, Jocelyn's dad arrives, asking if she's okay. We tell him she's fine. They're gathering up her things to leave when I look out the window and see a car pulling up. I say, "Hey, that red car that just pulled up in the driveway, that's her, right?" At this point, Jocelyn's dad lets out a sigh and says, "Yep, that's her." Just after that, the cops pull up and we were stunned. Like, the nerve of this lady to actually call the cops and say that we kidnapped her daughter was astounding, over bowling. But luckily, Jocelyn's dad always had paperwork in the car ready, just in case anything went down. The paperwork stated that she had no custody over Jocelyn. Not to mention, the state troopers are some of my dad's friends. While they were talking, Jocelyn gets one more phone call from her mom. But this time, she said hello, put it on speakerphone, and then hands it to her dad. Her mom said, "Last chance, Jocelyn. If you agree and come out, I'll get the cops to leave, and I won't press charges for kidnapping on your friend's family. All this drama could have been avoided if you had just gone bowling with me." Jocelyn's dad just says, thanks for admitting you lied on speakerphone to the police. After about 30 seconds of explaining, she hung up and she drove off as fast as she could without being stopped by police. She had apparently told police that my mom had threatened her when she called her, and that we had, of course, kidnapped her daughter and was holding her hostage. We've yet to hear if anything happened to her, since she's cut off all communication with Jocelyn and her dad since. But something tells me that police probably paid her a visit, and she's not gonna pull a stunt like that ever again. Some people are psycho, I tell you. And honestly, I was chuckling at the fact that Karen said to Jocelyn, this could have been avoided if you came bowling with me. No, it could have all been avoided if you didn't go completely nutso and call the cops over bowling. But yeah, to have a jealous, vindictive, spiteful mom like that has got to be so exhausting, right? And I can see why Dad's no longer with her, and he's got full custody of their daughter. So I'm a preschool teacher, and oh boy, I've got some fun stories. Recently, a mom put in a complaint about me. Her kids are twins, 3 years old, and they're an absolute mess. Now, I love all kids, but these two are something else. Their names are incredibly similar, first of all. Picture a parent naming their twins Candy and Mandy, or in this case, Mackenzie and McKinley. So these girls don't know their names. They both think their name's Mackenzie. They came into my class not potty trained, and they barely know any letters and colors, and they have a low vocabulary, even though they have an older sibling, both parents, and a nanny taking care of them. They hit, shove each other, pull each other's hair, and try to stick their fingers in each other's eyes. They've literally stepped on all of my other kids to get where they're going because they're so used to always having their way. One of them, McKinley, can be cute, and I've already made progress with her. She's using the potty by herself now, and she knows a few colors, and she's starting to respond to the correct name. And then there's Mackenzie. This girl literally clutches her pearls, and she looks offended if I ask her to do basic things, like clean up her toys, go potty, or even line up for recess. She gets angry if she's told to say please, and instead, she screams, chicken. Now, I would speak to her entitled mother at pickup about the behavioral issues, but I've even softened it and I didn't tell her everything this kid does. Her mom would always insist that all of their behavior was because every child develops differently and because they speak 2 languages. Which is true, but Mackenzie knows exactly what go potty means. She just doesn't like to do it. So last night, she was throwing a bigger fit than usual. I told her that she could stand up and walk to the potty, or I could carry her, but laying down and kicking her feet wasn't an option. She didn't get up, so I pick her up and take her to the bathroom. I give her a minute to stand still and calm down, and then told her again to use the potty. That's when she slaps me hard in the face, knocking my glasses clean off my face. This was the first time she'd hit someone other than her twin. I made her go potty and then sat her in the library, away from other kids, because she was still throwing her tantrum, and I didn't want her to hit another kid. I take hitting very seriously, so I told her that she needs to sit until she could be nice again, or until mommy got there so I could talk to her. Mackenzie just kept screaming and stomping, so I left her alone to cool down, since my sitting by her was only making her worse. Cue the entitled mom picking her up. She was rushing to get her screaming kids out, so I only had time to tell her that Mackenzie was sitting out of the group because she hit me in the face and wasn't being safe. That's when the mom asked why she hit, and I explained it was because she was refusing to go potty again. And that's when she says, "Did you deserve it though?" and then rushed them out. This morning when I arrived, she was in my boss's office throwing a tantrum, demanding the twins be removed from my care. I wasn't there for the conversation, but my boss called me in later to talk about it. Apparently, the mom described last night as the teacher put Mackenzie in timeout for not going potty, which totally was not what happened. I was on the verge of a panic attack all day because I didn't know what was going on or what I'd done wrong. My boss was fine with it once I explained, just told me to make sure I'm conscious of how things look to parents when they pick up their kids. The twins were moved to another preschool class, and at the end of the day, I overheard the teacher crying to the manager, because apparently, Karen had complained about her too. The woman can't handle her kids getting any kind of discipline whatsoever, but unfortunately, schools have schedules to keep, and we can't keep spending 45 minutes waiting for your child to, quote, decide to go potty on her own. When she first enrolled them, she asked my co-teacher if we could spoon feed them. They're in preschool. Their classmates speak in full sentences, draw detailed pictures, can count to 30, say the entire alphabet, and some can even write their names already. I'm so hoping that that woman just pulls them out of school, because if she tries to put them in my class again, I'm not taking them. So I never thought I'd have something to post, but here I am. Last week, I was traveling for work. It had been a long 2 days of meetings, and I was exhausted. I had just arrived at the airport from my evening cross-country flight home, when I got the dreaded text from the airline saying that my flight was delayed 2 hours due to mechanical problems. So I decided to pass the time by getting something to eat. I found an airport restaurant and I sat down to order. I order my food and then pull my phone out of my bag to catch up on some emails while waiting for my food to arrive. While I was waiting, a family with a mom, dad, little girl who's about 5 years old, and a teenage boy sit at a table near me. I didn't pay them much attention as I was looking at emails on my phone. But then I hear the girl exclaim in a rather loud voice, "Look, Mom, that lady is on her phone at the table." I then hear the mom reply, "Yeah, she shouldn't be doing that. It's so rude to have a phone at the table while eating." That's when I glance over and the mother says to me, "So we have a rule that no phones are allowed at the table." My first reaction was to say something snarky, as exhaustion was definitely getting the better of me. But then I thought better of it and I decided to be polite. I looked at the girl and said, "Oh, we have the same rule in my family, but since I'm here eating alone, I'm not being rude to anyone by looking at my phone now." And I thought this was a good thing to say. At this point, the son looks like he wants to crawl under the table from embarrassment, and the dad's trying to hand the mom a menu, and he says, "It's okay, let's just order." I think that'll be the end of it, but no. The mom actually says to me, "Obviously you have a family, so you know how important it is to follow rules. I would appreciate it if you would put away your phone." She used a tone that a parent would use on a disobedient teen. And that's when the little girl chimes in and says, "Yeah, you have to put your phone away. My brother can't have his phone at the table, so you can't either." I reply to the girl while staring at her mom dead in the eyes and say, "Well, the great thing about being a grown-up is that I can do whatever I want. So now I'm gonna keep looking at my phone." I then turn back to my email. The mom sighs loudly and the teen boy looks even more embarrassed. And the dad again tries to get the mom to order and to leave me alone. The mom calls the waiter over and asks to be reseated, and then loudly states that she hates sitting by rude people. He grudgingly moves them to a different table. My food arrives and I eat in peace, enjoying browsing my phone. Yeah, parents who try to parent others have got to be the worst, and I think OP handled that amazingly. I especially love the hardcore eye contact that OP made with Karen while basically telling her to F right off. I think I would have done the same. And before we close off today's episode, OP wonders if they're the bad guy for not giving their dad any money. Listen to this next post. So my mother died when I was 16 years old, and my dad married another woman 2 years later. My grandparents, my dad's parents, hate my stepmom. I don't really like her either. Even after my half-siblings were born, my grandparents never warmed up to her. And the thing is, my grandparents are quite wealthy, and my father has been banking on this inheritance for a while. He hasn't been paying into his retirement because he's so sure that he'll inherit the millions. Well, I just found out on Saturday that I'm getting the majority of my grandparents' estate. My father's getting a token amount of $50,000, so he can't dispute it. My grandparents made me promise to not give out any money after, and I intend to keep my word. But I do feel really guilty that my father just spends his money as it's coming in because he's relying on money he'll never get. I also found out that my dad's in a lot of debt, so am I the a-hole for not telling him? In my opinion, OP is not the a-hole for not telling Dad. But maybe OP should talk to their grandparents to get them to talk to Dad, because for sure it's gonna get so messy when they pass and Dad finds out that OP got all the money. And just judging by what OP said, with how Dad blows through everything he has, maybe OP's grandparents know that if it goes to Dad, all their hard-earned money will be spent in no time. Again, not the a-hole, and in my opinion, OP's father's irresponsibility is not their responsibility in this instance. Guys, let me know your thoughts. If you're in OP's shoes, are you keeping the millions and not telling your dad, or are you going to let him know? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our / petty revenge, where a psycho Karen tries to hijack OP's engagement party and gets absolutely embarrassed. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.